Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Black Pants, a wonderful graphic novel by David B., the French cartoonist. You might know David B., probably his most popular book was Epileptic. It was also his first book, translated into English from French and published in America. Just a really interesting cartoonist, definitely unique style. He tells really good stories, and as you can tell by this art, very expressionist, stylized, whatever you want to call it. Just really interesting. These were originally published in France in 2008, 2010. I assume they were 2 albums, and this American edition is 2011. And it's a nice little book. It's a nice little hardcover, published by Self-Made Hero, who I never heard of before. So, if they publish books of this caliber, I'd like to check out more of their stuff. I have a nice little end paper here. I just love the intricacy of his art. Like, it's a very simple style of art, but then he just really crams as much activity into a panel and or page as he can. And everyone's doing something interesting. You know what I mean? It's just like really fun to look at this cartooning. Title page. And we start with chapter 1, prologues. Many of the chapters are called prologues in this. I guess everything's a prologue to something. So in 1919, after World War I was over, the Austro-Hungarian Empire lost control of the Adriatic port city of Fiume. Basically, an eccentric group of idealist marauders led by the Italian fascist poet Gabriel D'Annunzio took the city over. They declared it a free republic, a utopian city-state immersed in the art and chaos of the avant-garde. So they're surrounded by, Italian forces. And the city descends into a bizarre, surrealist enclave of decadence, paranoia, and impossible schemes. So this city itself is just an amazing character in the book. I love this idea. It's just a city that just attracts all kinds of madmen and artists and revolutionaries and criminals. It's just this weird boulabase of all kind of oddball characters. Because of this, as we see in this first page, this is a common occurrence in Fiume. Just riots break out all the time, fist fights, big giant brawls involving 50 guys. I love the way he draws these faces so expressionistically. These are great. I just love this style. So we see this guy tear himself away from this mob. He's got his ass kicked. He can barely stand. And before he passes out, he sees these 3 guys, these 3 bandits. 2 of them recognize the guy. They're like, yeah, he was in our unit back in the war. And so these guys are basically, they're in this apartment building. They're going to knock down the door of this one apartment where they know these Milanese gangsters are. Apparently they stole what they stole. These guys stole some stuff. The Milanese gangsters stole it from them and they want it back. Now we're going to meet our main character here, Loriano, this guy right here. The big guy with the broad shoulders, he's Natale. Now, those 2 guys served in the Arditi, a very elite Italian fighting force in the military. And they're also with this guy, Mike Bertoni, who was never in the war. He's also Italian, but he's just a bandit. He never had any conviction or any loyalty to his country. He's just a thief. So, since they're involved with banditry, it's like, fine. But, they're not really pals with that guy. Really like the colors in this, too. He has a great sense of color. So they beat down the door. and they start beating the shit out of these Milanese gangsters. God, just when he has these fight scenes, the chaos that he conveys with his art is, just like a real brawl. It's complete chaos, You can like sense it the way he draws it. It's really, really good. So they kick the Milanese out, and now they got their loot back. Loriano goes in another room, the bedroom, and he finds this woman. She says, "I'm Mina. I guess I'm part of the hall now." And it turns out she was a girlfriend of one of those Milanese gangsters. They took her clothes. She's just wearing a little slip, so she couldn't escape. So it didn't sound like he was a very good boyfriend. And pretty soon, right off the bat, these two seem to have a connection. They seem very attracted to each other. So Mike is basically saying like, "Oh, I don't care if those guys come back. They're a bunch of pansies. We'll kick the shit out of them." But the other two are just like, "They're going to come back. Maybe we should leave." He's like, fuck that. So Loriano goes back into the bedroom with Mina. That he looks down on the street, that the big brawl is still going on. Mina says it's over her. The fight started because she was hanging out with this guy. Another guy she knew saw them at the window canoodling. One thing led to another. This giant fight breaks out. So they already kiss, like 5 minutes after meeting each other. So now we see these Milanese gangsters. Now they're led by this guy named Dondini. And, Dondina. He's the one with the big wide tie here and that bowler hat. And he's like, "Okay, guys," he got more thugs. And then he says, "Where's Neroni?" And Neroni's in this brawl. So they have to grab Neroni out of this brawl. Like, "Neroni, get the hell over here. We got a job to do." And Neroni's just kind of a big, dumb lug. Well, not a very big lug, but he's just a lug. And he says, "Okay, boss." I like how the logic here. Dondina says, "Okay, Neroni, you're already beat up. You should break down the door. You should go in first, since you're already beat up." So now they can hear them outside. Natale and Mike can hear them outside. And so Loriano's just like, "I'm getting out of here with this hot, mean woman." And they climb out the window once they hear the ruckus starting. It's a great panel right there. So many great panels in this. So in the few minutes they had before they broke the door down, Natale and Mike piled up all of this loot and then pushed it down on them to crush them all. And they escape. But Dondina wasn't in that the fallen loot. And he stabs Natale. So now these Milanese gangsters, they look out and they see Loriano on the roof. Loriano's got a gun. He kills one of them. Just shoots right into the window. Another one of them falls down off the staircase landing to his death. And so Natale and Mike escape. And so do Loriano and Mina on the rooftops. Loriano, we'll see throughout this graphic novel, he's almost like a Spider-Man. Or Daredevil. He loves running around the rooftops. It's like his main mode of transportation. God, this art I love this art. I know it's probably, some people might think it's too cartoony and weird. I fucking love it. And Loriano tells Mina, he says, the First World War didn't stop on November 11th, 1918, it just scattered. Because that's what happened. And now we have a narrator kind of tell us about... oh, I'm sorry. This is actually the word balloon from Laureano. He's talking to Mina. We flash back to 1918. Eastern Europe. Countries are reborn. New ones appear. Countries disappear. Borders twist like poisonous snakes. I like that. So all these young countries turned on each other because they had to cut their teeth. When they weren't out of enemies, they massacred the Jews. God, this is amazing. This weird, almost like abstract collage, or I should say expressionist. I always use these art terms and I'm probably wrong. I never studied art, but that's what the kind of, it's expressive to me. So I'm calling it expressionistic. I like this little vignette. He says how a journalist interviewed a member of the Franco-German Corps at the end of the war. He says, the war is over. The treaty is signed. Why do you continue to fight? Because these guys just kept fighting. And the soldier says, who decided that the war was over? We are the war. So the victors come to Versailles, split everything up, and that's when, Fiume is taken from Hungary. Oh, I'm sorry, they give it to Yugoslavia. Most of the inhabitants of Fiume are Italian, so they're like, no, we don't like that. We want to stay Italian. And so then they find there's D'Annunzio. He was a war hero. And basically when he took over the country, he offered to Italy. But of course the Allies, they were just like, no, we said it's going to Yugoslavia. So basically they just surrounded the city like a siege. The only people to recognize Fiume were the Berlin Dada Club. Just another great, crazy page of just like a poster. So the Italian army is still surrounding the city, but there's no battles anymore. Italy basically is just waiting. They're like, these guys are probably gonna just fall in on themselves, this crazy city. It's run by a madman. Let's just let him, give him enough rope and we'll let him hang. So now we cut away to D'Annunzio. And we also meet Guido Keller in the background here. He's more of a radical. He's actually a socialist. But that's how crazy D'Annunzio is. He doesn't really care, even though he's kind of a fascist. And he's reaching out to Benito Mussolini. But he's also a revolutionary who, it's just like, and his cabinet all have different interests. Some of them are just like surrealist poets or something. So they're like just making these crazy suggestions. It's just chaos. For some reason, there's a Japanese representative, Mr. Harukichi, for some reason offering a message from Benito Mussolini. I guess they'd end up being Axis allies soon enough. Maybe they were in World War I. I don't know my history that well. So they're talking about invading Rome. Basically, Mussolini hasn't taken power yet. Mussolini's reaching out to D'Annunzio and saying, hey, help me. We'll take Rome together and, turn Italy into a revolutionary government. And then one of his assistants says, hey, there's a guy named Machiste here to see you. And D'Annunzio is just from hearing the name says, let him in right away. He basically says, I can't not receive a greeting from a man named Machiste. So now we meet Commissioner Crispy. And he shows Crispy around, and he shows him his collection of objets d'art. D'Annunzio's a collector of all kinds of crazy stuff. He's quite the eccentric, this guy. He shows him this statue of St. Francis of Assisi with a gun belt and holsters like from the Old West on his waist. Such a great image. I love that. Of course, he says, yeah, the revolvers are mine. I put them on this statue after it was stolen from a baptistry. So Crispy tells him why he's there. Or Crispy, i.e. Machiste. God, look at the way he draws his face. It's almost like that Scream painting by Munch. Such a weird, like the way his wrinkles are. Very bizarre. And he basically says, I'm from the Milanese police. We're investigating traffic stolen goods, and all of them seem to end up here in Fiume. So we're trying to figure out who these scofflaws are. So after he talks to D'Annunzio, he goes outside, and then his other commissioner friend, Commissioner Brass, is hanging outside. They're partners. They're just talking about how crazy the city is. Crispy actually says, he's like, I admire the shit out of this guy, this D'Annunzio. He's great. If I was younger, I'd probably be joining him. But whatever, I got my job to do. Now we cut away. Mina and Loriano are on a little coffee date, or maybe at a bar. And they see how every chapter is prologue, the lovers. They're getting to know each other, and it seems like their love is deepening every minute. So Mina's a singer, and she just sings at a local cabaret, you know. She's not very famous or anything. So he mentions the Arditi. She says, oh, I heard the Arditi were awful. And he says, yes, we fought like dogs. I love this. He draws them literally like dogs fighting in the trenches. She sings him a song, basically just a sad song about how love ends. They got together one summer, then all of a sudden they argued and foolishly parted. Meanwhile, good married folk are cuckolded and happy. Love doesn't care about lovers. I should have tried to make up a melody, but that would have just been not good. And so they're in this cafe, and another fight breaks out. It just constantly happens in the city. So the commissioners are checking out Loriano and Mina. And we find out that Mina, her dad, was in the German Secret Service, and she helped him. But she changed sides for love. I guess a French agent wooed her. And she became a French citizen and left Hungary, which I think was part of Germany then. So he takes her to his little room. He has just a little room he rents, even though he also shares an attic space with his buddies. But every now and then he wants privacy, so he has a tiny little room. Here's at a boarding house. Here's the old lady who runs it. They go up, and we find out a little bit more about Loriano. He's a writer. He's a secretary to Guido Keller. Guido's the guy we saw earlier, because Guido is the secretary to D'Annunzio. Guido publishes this paper called Yoga, and he writes articles for it. They embrace again, and now we cut away to the two commissioners, and they're meeting the captain of the Carabinieri. That's like the Italian police, but they're almost like the SWAT police, you know. So when they get there, the statue of St. Francis is there with the guns, and there's a note from D'Annunzio. And he says, this statue belongs to Italy, so I'm returning it. the guns except as a gift from me. These wrinkles are just so weird. So he takes the guns off, puts them on, looks in the mirror. He says, I look like such an arsehole, I almost want to keep them. So now the captain, Captain Ruffalo, he basically he's on the case of what we just saw in the first 40 pages. He's like, yeah, these two gangs had a fight in an apartment. 2 of them got killed. We got to find out who these guys are. So now, even though he's like, in Italy they have the Carabinieri, but I guess a lot of them just have defected to Fiume. So these guys are like all Italians, but they're also just like, nah, we live in Fiume now, because D'Annunzio is so charismatic. He's his words have stirred a lot of people to up and move to this crazy city. So now all 3 of them walk out into the street, and they notice a poster of Mina. And one of the commissioners says, I'd like to have a few words with her. She's probably involved in this. We see Mina praying in church, and she's saying, please get me out of this town and let me be a famous singer. She doesn't like it in Fiume. She's kind of stuck there. Now we see D'Annunzio giving a speech. Everyone in the city is listening. Oh, here's another one, prologue, the end. And we see Dondina and his thugs milling about. So they point up and they can see the attic garret of Loriano Natale and their 2 other military friends who also served in World War I. Gitano and Cesare. I think Cesare is the one with the mustache here. We see Natale is wounded from the knife attack, and he's doing better though. So Cesare and Loriano love books. They enjoy surrounding themselves with them. Actually, I think this is the attic of a library. So they've just filled their garret with all these books. And instinctively, they've formed them into trenches. End tables, stools. There's just piles of books everywhere. And then they use them as furniture, as well as read them. So now, once again, Dondini is going to attack them to get revenge. And so, once again, Neroni is the first to break in, throws a hand grenade in to the garret, goes right out the window, though, and explodes without hurting anyone. And he doesn't know that, though. He thinks, oh, they're going to be mincemeat when we run in. And as soon as they run in, though, everyone's fine. And they're, like I said, they're using their books as a trench. And it's a rout. These guys Dondini's men just run away. I'm sorry, the guy with the mustache is Gaetano. The other guy's Cesare, the guy with the fuzzy head. So Gaetano is so fired up, he chases after these guys right into the crowd. And he bumps into a really big guy. And guess what happens? They start fighting, and within seconds, it turns into another huge riot of fighting. I just love this progression of these panels. It's like the fight is spreading like a disease, even spilling over into this military parade. D'Annunzio sees this from his balcony and just says, what great people, what energy, what virility. I'm proud to lead people like this. He's just a nut. He's totally crazy. But yeah, I can see why people, are riled up by him. He's he does have this, definitely has a energetic spirit. So the riot just keeps spreading through the town. Meanwhile, we see Mina singing at a cafe. And she just goes back to Laureano's little room. She's basically staying there. Laureano pulls his daredevil routine again, starts jumping along the rooftops. And he makes it to his little place, and him and Mina make love. All interspersed with his scenes of fighting. Like, this looks so heavenly and idyllic. They're pure love. But then this is just crazy. It's almost like Guernica, you know? So now we have the ghosts. And Laureano is sitting at a cafe one day, and this crazy old man comes up to him selling newspapers. I love this character. Whatever. It looks like something from, I don't know, some comic strip that never existed, but it kind of looks like some old comic strip character, maybe in a land where there actually is LSD in all the water. That would be the comic character, very popular comic character. So he sells him a paper, and he says, "Hey, this is from 1912." And he says, "Yeah, I only sell old newspapers, because in those days there was no war." God, I love the way he draws this guy. It's nuts. So he rolls up the paper, puts it in his suit, and then Gitano shows up. And he's like, he's kind of bragging. He's like, "Did you see, I started that big fight last night. That was me." And they chat for a little. Another one of their soldier buddies comes up, says they're wasting their talents being bandits. They should actually join the army and fight for a cause. And they're like, "Fuck that. We did our time." All of a sudden, Laureano sees something, leaps from the table, and runs out into the street. There's this huge crowd, and he sees this character. He says, "Leon," or is it Leone? "Wait for me." And then Leone turns into this like kind of horrifying specter and just dissolves into the crowd. Now we see Mr. Dondina with Neroni and some other thug. They're wearing their old military uniforms, I guess to maybe kind of fit in better or something, or conceal themselves. And he sends Neroni, the one who always seems to have a black eye. He says, "Take care of that guy. We're going to get revenge on him." And so he's got a knife, and he stabs Laureano and runs away. It's like mission accomplished. But he didn't look back. If he looked back, he would have seen Laureano gets up. And it seems like the big, giant, fat newspaper actually protected him from the knife. Now we see Mina alone in his little room. And she's trying to just figure out who Laureano is. He's such an enigma. She's looking through all of his books and his writings and the things he reads. She says it's a portrait of Laureano in newsprint. She says, "Well, I better get going. I'll try to find the flesh and blood Laureano." And she leaves behind on his bed almost like an effigy of Laureano made out of books and newspapers and magazines. I really like that image. Now we cut away to D'Annunzio. Him and his secretaries are planning this attack on Rome. They've got this crazy armored train. It just seems nuts. I mean, he's more into the design of the train than the actual military tactics that they're going to employ. It's like, "Oh, I want it to be a futurist armored train." So now Guido comes in with the first issue of Yoga, and they start arguing. D'Annunzio says, "You didn't run any of these articles by me. I don't know if I like that." And they really start getting down to brass tacks. And because, like I said earlier, Guido is basically a socialist, but he's somehow hanging out with these right-wing fascists. I mean, they're all kinds of people, so some of them are just surrealists or whatever. A lot of these general types, they don't like Guido. They're full-on fascists. And D'Annunzio has to break up a couple of fights that almost start. And so their argument gets more and more intense. It does break out into a fight, eventually. Finally, D'Annunzio has to pull out guns and fire into the air and be like, "Shut the hell up." And so Guido finally realizes that, he's hitched his wagon to the wrong star. He's done with D'Annunzio. He realizes that he's just like every other ruler. This isn't going to be some great utopian city. It's going to be like every other stupid country that fights wars and shit. I forgot to mention that he brought along a madman from the asylum because he thinks that madmen have the most genius ideas, so it's good to hang out with them. So this weird-looking guy, he's almost like the goon from Popeye, Alice the Goon. And so Guido takes off all of his clothes. Just because he's kind of nuts. And he basically gives D'Annunzio the kiss off. And he storms out. Right when he goes outside, he sees Laureano. He's like, "Why are you naked?" He says, "I gave everything to Gabriele D'Annunzio. I'm free." So they also knew each other in the war. And so, Laureano tells Guido about how he keeps seeing Leone, the guy he saw in the crowd who turned into a ghost. "I keep seeing him. I have to bury him somehow. I see dead people a lot." And as they walk through this crowd, we see all these like weird, almost look like tribal masks. These are ghosts, the ghosts of the dead soldiers. Now we see Mina. She finds Natale and Cesare, and they're at a cafe, and she's asking him, like, where's Laureano? Does he have a seat? And they tell her about Laureano, and they tell her about during World War I. They also talk about he calls his room the land of nowhere. But beyond just the nickname he has for his room, the land of nowhere is like this almost philosophical state. He knows it doesn't exist, but he still tries for it. It's just, he wants a mental state he wants to achieve. It's almost like his never land or something. So now we flash back to World War I. We see the Arditi. And, it's just horrible trench warfare in the mud, in the blood. Once again, we see them drawn as dogs. They, I guess the Arditi wore like metal armor in battle, which I don't know if that really happened in World War I. He says, in our armor, we became a pack of steel dogs. And so Leone was like their kid brother. And he was like the youngest soldier. And so during a bombing, Laureano disappeared. There was a ceasefire, so Natale decided to crawl out to no man's land. And they find Laureano in a ditch, in a hole, a bomb hole, right in the middle of no man's land. He's been there for like a day. And basically he's happy there. He doesn't want to leave. He spent the night under the stars, finding food from the dead soldiers and flasks of water. He decided to stay there. He felt this sense of peace there. The animals came to pay tribute, and we see all these rats and worms from the dead corpses. I love that panel, these rats. And then the ghosts appeared, and once again we see these weird, bizarre ghosts. Leon was among them. And he said, he spoke to him. He said, "I would like you to bury me, but my body went up in smoke in that shell explosion." He says, "How can I give you a burial then?" He says, "It's an impossible task, but you must do it all the same." So Laureano made a myth out of this 2 days in no man's land. It those 2 days preyed on his mind way after the war ended. The war's over, he comes out without a scratch. But every time he was in a crowd, he saw his dead comrades. Even when he looked into a baker's window, the bread turned into skulls. He saw trenches wherever he looked. Obviously, PTSD, what we call it today. I love this weird panel here. It says, rubbish piled up in the streets took on the shape of a mound of dead bodies. So now we're back to Natalie and Mike, and they're once again at a cafe, and Laureano shows up. And I guess they're planning another heist. They're going to steal from D'Annunzio. Mike has the idea that they could take his objet d'art. And, Laureano says it's all worthless. Almost all of it's worthless. They do have a statue of St. Francis, though. If we stole that, we could make a lot of money. And Laureano also has this idea. He wants to have a celebration of the dead who died without a proper burial. He figures this might be a way to symbolically bury Leone. And then Guido shows up with his madman friend, his goony friend. And then Natalia likes the idea. He's like, "Yeah, this is great. We're going to have this celebration." But of course, they're also planning this theft. The St. Francis statue is still in the barracks of the Carabinieri. How do you say? Carabinieri. D'Annunzio again. He is informed about this celebration for the dead. So everyone knows about it. It's basically going to be a big thing, a citywide event. And we see Dondini and Neroni are there. Dondina. Now the Dondina and his Milanese gangsters run into Mike. Mike pulls a gun on them, but they shoot him and kill him. They actually tell Nerone to finish him off to make up for all of his mistakes. And then after he shoots Mike, they kill Nerone. And they say, "Sorry, Nerone, you made too many mistakes." So now these bad guys are going to go after Laureano and Natale. Once again, we see the young lovers meeting outside a cafe. Laureano's gotten in the habit of just having a giant newspaper in front of him at all times, so no one can see him. It even becomes their little secret rendezvous. They're both hiding behind the newspaper and smooching and stuff. When she sees the poster for his event, she says, you've decided to bury the war. And he says, maybe it's better than declaring a new one. So here we see the event. It not only has attracted like soldiers and people who want to, salute the dead, the veterans, but everyone comes for their own reasons. Like these revolutionaries are like, we're laying to rest the power mongers of the world, So it's just everyone's there. So now we see these the commissioner, the two commissioners, and the captain. They're going to dress up too, so they can fit in with the crowd. They're going to they know about Dondina and his Milanese gangsters, and they're going to try to apprehend them. They know they're behind all the smuggling. This is just so perfect for David B. doing a parade where everyone's wearing crazy masks. He's so good at just making up like weird little faces like that. So it's big. They finally catch up to Dondina and his men, and a fight breaks out. Shots are fired. A knife is pulled. And it looks like Dondina and his men they lose the fight. And the commissioners and the captain shoot them all dead. Apparently, when they fired their gun, they shot the statue of St. Francis. They didn't hurt anyone else. So our bandits escape with the help of Mina. Somehow she's got this armored truck. And they all get inside. So the armored truck's just trying to get out of the city. They're trying to escape. And everyone's like, don't let him pass. Stop that tank. So Loriano has the idea of opening up the hatch and just pushing the statue of St. Francis up out of it. And everyone's just all like in awe. They're like, can a saint drive a tank? I've never seen him in real life. One of the guys is like, can't you guys see this? It's just a freaking statue. And he whispers or yells into the Jeep. He says like, hey in there, hurry up and come out so this lot stops believing in miracles. And Loriano says, I don't think they'll stop believing in miracles or wooden saints anytime soon. Thanks all the same. And they just drive on without any resistance because everyone's in awe of St. Francis driving this armored car. Loriano thought to himself, Leon, that was your funeral, and this city is your grave. Are we quits now? Now we see a little epilogue, and on November 12th, basically Italy invaded Fiume. They said enough of this bullshit. The city fell pretty quickly. D'Annunzio escaped, took refuge in Vienna. Natale took off as soon as they got the money from the statue. He doesn't care about politics. He just wants money. He just wants to be comfortable. And Mina goes to Rome, and she starts singing again, and she gets bigger venues and more fame, and pretty soon she's huge. Meanwhile, Loriano just wrote articles for a newspaper, every time under a different pseudonym. He tried to remain as invisible as possible in everything he did. It's folded up into the end of the logo here. He heeded all his senses, looking out for signs of the land of nowhere. He never saw Leon's ghost in a crowd again, but now he kind of misses it. And when Mina left him, he was mildly surprised. And she says, do you remember that song I sang you the first time we met? And she sings a little bit of that song again. I'll try to make up a melody. Then suddenly they'll get angry at each other and stupidly they'll leave each other. Love doesn't care about lovers. And she says, well, that's now. And he's just like, oh. She says, but I'm not even angry. And she just walks out of the cafe. And then when we look back, Loriana was turned into that printed matter effigy. This last panel just, it almost makes the graphic novel. This is so amazing to me. This is who Loriano is, basically. He's such an enigma. I like how even David B. even tried to make it work. So the books where his hand should be are actually open, as if they could pick something up. And then his head is an open book, which ironically, his head wasn't an open book at all. But it also is like the newspaper he constantly held to cover himself all that time. And it's just God. I mean, you could read so many things into this, just the way this ends. But yeah, it's just, this is Loriano's character boiled down to its essence. Oh man, what an ending. I love that. We have a nice little bio of David B. Beautiful end papers here. This thing really creeps me out, this image of Leone in the crowd, just staring. And that's it for Black Paths. Man, I really like this graphic novel. I hope you guys enjoyed looking at it with me. Yeah, David B., this is the third thing I've read by him. And I really like his stuff a lot. I have Epileptic. I'll make a video for that sometime in the future. But I'll give some other comics a chance before then. Man, really impressed by this. I definitely want everything David B's done. This is just really interesting work. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Bye.